This is a story of silent sovereignty. It's a story of powerful providence. It is a story of unseen footprints. It is a story that reminds us that God is at work arranging, directing the course of events even when we don't see him. Take a look at verse 10 and 11. So the king took his signet ring from his hand. What is that, you say? Well, it's a symbol of his power, his authority. He gives a signet ring, basically saying, here's my signature. You can do with it what you want. The king takes his ring and he gives it to Haman the Agagite. That is, once again, his connection back, 1,400 years of animosity towards the Jewish people, the enemy of the Jews. And the king said to Haman, the money is given to you, the people also, to do with them. Who's them? The Jews, as it seems good to you. Do you see the fingerprints of Satan all over this once again? The king goes along with it. The king issues a proclamation, and we'll issue that in a moment, but he gives Haman the permission, the blessing to proceed on the plan. From his vantage point, the king is focused on the revenue. From Haman's vantage point, his focus is on revenge. And the king gives that permission, that carte blanche, do with them whatever you want to do. You got to ask the question, why would the king go along with the mass genocide of the Jewish people who are scattered through his entire kingdom? Well, you ask, first of all, probably the financial incentive that he personally would gain a lucrative benefit from the fact that Haman was doing this at his own expense. And the second thing, just kind of contemplate with me, what does he care about the Jewish people? He doesn't know any Jews. He doesn't have any advising him. He doesn't have anybody in his inner circle of influence. What are Jews to him? And all of a sudden, that little detail that we mentioned a few weeks ago comes into play, because little does he know that the woman he chose 6 years before that to be queen is Esther of the Jews. A little detail that was kept secret because when she was chosen, Mordecai told her, don't tell anybody you're Jewish. Do you see how that little thing, that seemingly random act of coincidence, now all of a sudden becomes a mighty act of providence? Because the king has just issued a death warrant for the Jewish people, not knowing that it includes the very woman who is the queen of the kingdom. That's a powerful thing. Here's a key thought as we think about that. Satan's evil blueprints are no match against God's unseen footprints. Satan has his blueprints. He's trying to work and scheme his will. And all of this plan for a year is coming into development. And all of a sudden, the king says, sure, do what you want. Evil blueprints, wicked blueprints. Listen, in the midst of it, they are no match for the giant, awesome, unseen footprints of God. Remember that verse from last week, Psalm 77, that his footprints or that God was moving through the sea with the Jewish people, though his footprints were unseen. This is a story of silent sovereignty. It's a story of powerful providence. It is a story of unseen footprints. It is a story that reminds us that God is at work arranging, directing the course of events even when we don't see him. Here's an action step. Action step here, stand firm with convictions. New Hope, let me speak to you heart to heart here. Stand firm with convictions. Standing for Christ may require times we stand alone. Never forget, in this passage, this chapter, this whole thing has emerged because of one man, Mordecai, who stood firm with convictions. And he stood firm day after day, week after week, month after month. He never caved with compromise. He stood firm with convictions. And my friend, as far as we have biblical record of, he was the only one who did. He was the only one. He stood firm with convictions. And all of a sudden, it reaches this point of crisis, but it was a man who said, I'm a Jew. That is, I am different. I am called to a higher law, a higher leader, a higher love. And so he was called to this mission, and he had to stand firm, even if it meant standing alone. It reminds me this week, of a New Hope couple who has done this, and they have stood firm with convictions, and they've done so for years, week after week, month after month, and they have stood firm, basically contending with biblical conviction and contending for the way of Jesus Christ in the midst of the public school system. And they have confronted wrong. They have spoken out when it's not been popular. They have confronted evil. They have stood firm. They have not bowed or caved to pressure. And as a result of advocating for the way of Jesus Christ, they've been accused of being in the way. As a result, week after week, month after month, they get verbal attacks, they get anonymous emails, they get threats, they have all of these obstacles in their path. And along this journey, they've remained faithful when they could have just bowed out or bowed down to the pressures, but they've maintained their convictions in a culture of compromise. My friend, they are a blessing to the culture, not a burden to them. Though the public school may think that they're a burden, listen, they are a blessing because they are advocating for the truth of Jesus Christ in the midst of the sin. That's what it looks like. As I was talking with a couple this week, they sent in this testimony, shared with their permission. They said, back then, we were lukewarm and clueless Christians going through the motions of our Christian walk. God shook us up. And by his mercy, we woke up from our slumber. In our struggle, we were defeated in battle after battle, but looking back, we gained so much more. All the cultural chaos made us lean closer to God, his word, his promises, and his church. It was truly God who sustained us. He was and is our only hope. That's powerful stuff. And that's a snapshot of what it looks like to labor for years, to stand firm in conviction. Yeah, you get defeated. It seems battle after battle. Things don't go, you have disheartening setbacks, but then at some point you're able to look back with hindsight to see the hidden hand of a silent sovereign God to say he was there the whole time working, arranging, personally directing things for his glory and our good. That's happy providence. Stand firm with convictions.